a.m. here in Japan. And unfortunately, you've probably already heard the breaking news that it has begun. U.S. just fired 50 Tomahawk missiles at Syria in a potential set-off of World War III based on the preposterous chemical weapons attack lore that has been seeded in the last few days that has turned a furious McCain, who is, of course, furious at Rex Tillerson for suggesting that the people of Syria actually determine the long-term status of President Assad. Well, now McCain, of course, is gloating as POTUS strikes in Syria send an important message that U.S. won't stand by as Assad, aided by Russia, slaughters innocent civilians, or innocent Syrians. And, of course, Trump reading off of the terror script that the neocons have handed him. No surprise whatsoever. It is in the vital national security interest of the United States to prevent and deter the spread and use of deadly chemical weapons. Tonight, I call on all civilized nations to join us in seeking to end the slaughter and bloodshed in Syria. And early reports are that many nations have already committed their support to this action, including my home and native land of Canada. No surprise there. For people who need the data dump of what this is all about and where this came from, a good place to start might be the Ron Paul Liberty Report recently covered this. Ron Paul says Syrian chemical attack makes no sense. It's almost as if Assad is the stupidest, most suicidal, ridiculous, insane leader of all time, launching chemical weapon strikes on his own civilians on the literal eve of peace talks that were going to solidify his place in the Syrian government. That seems a bit strange, doesn't it? Another good source to start questioning this, reviving the chemical weapons line, new US-UK calls for regime change military attack against Syria, 21st Century Wire. And people might need to be reminded of the earlier 2013 episode where the commander-in-chief of the current time was then excoriating the commander-in-chief Obama 2013 for suggesting that the U.S. needed to get militarily involved in Syria. You should see some of the tweets that he made in that time. Based on what turned out to be the fabricated Damascus Ghouta chemical weapons attack. It did take place. It's just that those chemical weapons were not launched by the Syrian government. They came from the rebels, as was admitted even by the UN Commission investigator Carla Del Ponte at the time, and even later on further given proof by MIT, which did its own study that found that the rockets used in Syrian chemical attacks actually did come from rebel-held territories, not from Syrian government positions. Again, that's McClatchy, MIT, the United Nations. This is not conspiracy fear-mongering. So anyway, this is all to say that we are now in an incredibly perilous state, and what happens over the next 24 to 48 to 72 hours could literally determine the future course of events in the world. That is not hyperbole. This is extremely delicate, what is happening right now, because obviously these strikes can and probably will affect Russians as well, Russian military personnel who are in Syria. And if that happens, that could set off the international war. This is the game for all the marbles, and it is being played right now. This is exceptionally important news. I'm obviously going to be covering it in this weekend's newsletter, and that will be open to the general public, so I will have more to say on this, but I do need your help. I can't watch the 24/7 news feed all by myself. I've been under the weather for the last few days, so it's even more difficult than usual. So I do need your help in compiling and finding this data. If you do have good information, interesting links, please do leave them in the comments section at corbettreport.com. I'm looking forward to them, and it's just a really interesting piece of historical parallel here that it was precisely 100 years ago this week. In fact, this newspaper is from 100 years ago today, U.S. time. Wilson lied the U.S. into World War I for the banksters' benefit, and here we are on the brink of a potential World War III.